Hello, revolutionaries, and welcome back to the Revolution channel. So, today we're going to do chapter 10 of our general psychology from BA IGNOU, and this would be the last chapter of this general psychology course, and with this would be finished with our psychology at least, apart from several other subjects that we have left already. The name of the chapter is Applications of Psychology. So, in brief, this chapter tells us about where psychology is actually used, like in practical life, where psychology is actually applicable, and what are the various fields in which a psychologist can go, or how many kinds of different psychologists there are, and how many different branches of psychology there are. In this chapter, we will discuss the application of psychology in various fields such as health, education, organization, law, etc. So let's start. Now, these are all the just summed up notes from all the various fields that were written in the book, and you just need to these are actually not explanations; these are notes this time. So you just need to expand on them by yourself and just take out some points from these notes. Okay, so just reading these notes won't get you to pass your exam in this particular chapter talking about. But you can just work up on these notes and form your own bigger paragraphs, bigger text. So, starting with clinical psychology. Clinical psychologists perform psychotherapy, investigate clinical problems, and develop methods of treatment. So, just as it suggests, I believe clinical psychology is the most basic and layman form of psychology. And clinical psychologists, they use psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is nothing but using psychology or psychological techniques to treat patients. Psychotherapy is the treatment of mental conditions by verbal communications and interaction. But yeah, so here they don't use any they don't use any kinds of machines, or they don't use any tests. They only use verbal communication and interaction. They investigate the clinical problems, what can be the clinical problems behind it, and then they develop methods of what could be the appropriate method for treatment of a particular patient. Now, this field emphasizes the diagnosis, causes, and treatment of severe psychological disorders and emotional troubles. So, this field, the experts in this field are experts at diagnosing psychological disorders and emotional troubles. So, what could be psychological disorders? Psychological disorders, let's just see some examples of psychological disorders. Examples of psychological disorders. Okay, so here it comes. Psychological disorders can be bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, eating disorders, anxiety disorders, depression. So these are psychological disorders, a condition that alters the state of your brain and which can have a lasting impact on you. It can be permanent impact or a very lasting impact. Everybody feels stress in our day-to-day life, right? We often cry, we often feel hurt, we feel distressed, emotionally distressed, but that doesn't come under psychological disorder. Okay, psychological disorder is something more permanent, like depression. Depression is a more permanent form of stress and anxiety. Okay. Then schizophrenia, it's a mental condition. In schizophrenia, a person, I think if I'm right, uh, it the person interprets reality in a very abnormal way. Okay, he doesn't know what to do, how to interact with people, and the person may even have hallucinations and delusions about different kind of things. I believe I did develop a very mild form of schizophrenia earlier in my life, but I believe I have recovered from it. At least I think so. Now, this field emphasizes, yeah, we've done this. Moving on, clinical psychologists and psychiatrists are two different professionals. Now, this is an important point because we often mix up psychologists and psychiatrists into one single frame. Okay, but this is not the case. It's different. Psychologists are different and psychiatrists are different, just as the names are. The names are a bit similar, but exactly like the names, they are a bit similar, but they are different as well. And how they are different, we'll just see now. Psychiatrists are physicians, so they are more like doctors. Okay, psychiatrists are doctors, and you can consider psychologists to be researchers or scientists, but a scientist is different from a doctor, right? A scientist may not necessarily know how to diagnose a disease. He can research in a particular field, he can research in a particular subject, but he may not know how to diagnose patients with that particular subject, what medicines are necessary. So in the same case, psychiatrists are physicians, they are doctors, and they pursue MBBS, and then they do Doctor of Medicine in psychiatry. So psychiatrists are actually MBBS doctors, and after they have done their MBBS, then they choose some specialized course, their MD course, and those people who choose psychiatry as their course of choice in Doctor of Medicine or MD, those people become psychiatrists. Psychologists, they do not need to be doctors. Okay, I mean, you can be psychologist, you can do, you can just do BA in psychology, so that way you won't be a doctor, but you can be psychologist. Psychologists, on the other hand, pursue MA, or you can do MSc as well, of course, like BA, BSc. You can do both. In psychology, you can do BA or you can do BSc. There's no other subject in which you can do both BA or BSc, but in psychology, you can do BA or BSc both. In the same case, you can do MA or MSc as well in psychology, and then you can pursue a doctorate degree, that is a PhD or PSYD, that is what was it, philosophy. First PhD is philosophy of doctorate, and I really don't know what PSY.D that is. This was okay. So PSY actually stands for a particular degree in psychology. It stands for Doctor of Psychology. So it's a very specialized, it's a very exact degree of psychology, of PhD of psychology. Clinical psychologists are not allowed to prescribe drugs for the treatment of mental disorders, whereas psychiatrists are allowed. This is a very strong and very main point that you need to remember. This is the most important point here, that clinical psychologists, okay, psychologists, we're talking about psychologists here, they are not allowed to prescribe drugs. That is, they are not allowed to prescribe any kind of medicine for any mental disorders or anything. They can prescribe some techniques, some natural methods. They can talk to the patient, try to understand him, and try to treat him with verbal or mental or communicative methods, but they cannot tell him to take any particular drugs, take any particular medicines. Okay, but psychiatrists, they are doctors, so they are allowed to prescribe medicines to patients. Now moving on to some other field of psychology, this is counseling psychology, again a very widely used form of psychology. Counseling psychology work with people who have milder emotional and personal problems. So like people who face issues that they find hard to cope with in their everyday life. These are the people who seek help from counseling psychologists. This branch deals with helping people or individuals. It should be individuals here. I've written individual with personal problems, including interpersonal relations, that is a relationship between mother and son, father and son, husband wife, boyfriend girlfriend, or like these kinds of relationships. So people who face issues in these kinds of relationships, they are the ones who seek help from counseling psychologists. Then there are people who are confused about making a career choice, like what career should they go for, what career would be good for them, or what career they are made for, something like that. Mild emotional troubles, people who feel mild emotional troubles, or even behavioral problems such as overeating, slow learning, like people who have a hard time controlling their emotions and controlling their feelings. Okay, like if they want to eat, like they find something tasty, so they can't stop themselves from eating it. They find it really really hard, abnormally hard. And they are very people sometimes who are very slow learners, they feel like their mind is kind of stuck and they are very slow at learning new things. So these people can seek help from these psychologists. Nowadays, expert counseling psychologists are even working as marriage counselors and school counselors. School counselor is another very very a demanding job, or let's say not a demanding job, a job in demand, especially in schools and colleges moreover. Then third is your health psychology. Health psychology should be similar to counseling psychology, but let's see. Health psychology is the scientific study of health, illness, and health related problems. Okay, so the people in health psychology, they study and they try to find patterns behind a person's behavior on mental performance and actual physical ailments. this there is a separate division of health psychology in the American Psychological Association. It states that health psychology is to advance contributions of psychology to the understanding of health and illness with current psychological knowledge. They basically try to figure out the relationship between a person's mental state and his physical ailments. That is, if a person is feeling stressed, then he might develop some real actual physical symptoms, like he might start feeling giddy, or he might start getting really angry, or his blood pressure may suddenly drop or suddenly increase, his sugar levels may become abnormal, all because he's feeling stressed. Okay, so the psychological problems have a very deep the physical problems have a very deep root in psychological issues. And it's yeah, we're done here. So health psychologists recognize that our emotions and behavior play a vital role in maintaining our health, just like we said. So a person who has been feeling stressed for a very long period of time, over a long span of time, he might develop certain symptoms, certain physical symptoms, okay, not psychological exactly, but certain symptoms that you can actually see, that physicians, that doctors can actually diagnose. People might start forming tumors even. They might start forming kidney stones. Their liver might feel really loaded, okay, like their liver might feel overworked. They might develop hepatitis and all these kinds of various diseases, and doctor wouldn't be able to find any reason why. What could be the reason behind it? Normal physicians, normal doctors wouldn't be able to diagnose the cause. And but in such cases, this cause could be related to a person's mental problems, okay, to his mental illnesses. So in these cases, health psychologist comes into work. Then comes our engineering psychology. So psychologists employed in this field are responsible for writing instruction manual in such a manner that can be understood by laypersons so that they can operate complex machinery and home appliances. So psychologists here, they try to understand the mental capacity of normal people, of workers, also workers and normal people, and then they try to form the instructions of using a particular machine or a particular product. They try to convert the instruction manual of using these products into a very crude language so that everyone is able to understand it. Okay, like the kind of thing that I do, transforming or converting complex bookish knowledge into very simple, very crude form of knowledge, very crude form of information, so that you can easily digest it. Industrial psychologists have applied in designing the right type of machines which would make it possible for the workers to do their best by eliminating unnecessary operations, minimizing strain, and eliminating possibilities of confusion and oversight. So, industrial psychologists try to observe how workers do their work, what they feel about working on different kinds of machines, and what are the problems, the issues that they face, and then they try to suggest some modifications in the working environment or in the operation of a particular machine, so that workers can increase their output and lessen their workload, okay, and minimize their workload. This aspect of adjusting the job to the employee is known as human engineering. So you must have heard this term of human engineering. I'm not sure though if you have, but I have lots of times. So I'm just assuming that you might have as well. So this aspect where not the worker but the job is adjusted according to the worker's needs is what's called human engineering. So nowadays human engineering has taken a shit load of wreckage. I mean the kind of fashion, the trend that has gone up right now, where employees can work from home, and they just need to come to office maybe 2 times a week or 3 times a week at max, and they can just sit back at home and do their work. I mean, this is all just bullshit Western culture. But this is all due to really bad engineering psychologists, if the information here is true. Industrial or organizational psychology. The first application of psychology to the problems of industries and organizations was selection and recruitment of employees by using intelligence and aptitude tests. So the first use of this kind of psychology is to recruit employees who are more competitive, who are more suitable, you can say, who are like finding or selecting out the most suitable employees for that particular job. So you can't actually know everything about a person, and how the person will be able to affect the company's performance in a long time. So in this for this very reason, you have psychologists. Okay, they try to understand the workings of a person. They try to understand how a person behaves, how a person normally works. They just try to gauge an idea how he should be, and then according to that, they select the best applicants who they believe are fit for the job and will be able to do this job in a long term, and in long term will provide much more benefit to the company. Specialist in this field also applies psychology to problems related to management and employee training. So you need to manage employees as well. Sometimes employees feel stressed, sometimes they have too much workload. So in such cases, you need psychologists, where the psychologists, they try to minimize the mental strain on their employees. They try to form methods. They try to modify management systems so that workers don't feel overworked, so that they can easily work. They like the same thing, improve their working conditions. They organize on the job training programs for improving work environment and human relations and organizations and work settings. So they create they create workshops. I'm sure you must have heard of this term, workshop. So they organize these workshops, these later workshops, where they teach methods to the employees, how they can minimize their workload, how they can minimize their strain, how can they maintain their work and life relationship. So these kinds of things. These psychologists are sometimes called personal psychologists. I don't know why they are called personal psychologists though. Then comes your consumer psychology. This field of psychology focuses to help organizations by understanding the psychology of their consumers and thus increasing their sales. So this consumer psychology is a really important field of psychology. So consumer psychologists, I believe they must be in the highest demand. Consumer psychologists. So they try to understand the patterns of human mind, how our mind views things, how it interacts with some particular specific things, and they try to view the mind of people as a whole. Crowds or a huge mass of people. They try to understand how a huge group of people work or think together, and according to that they try to apply various psychological methods in order to increase their company's sale. For example, like in branding, this is mostly used. So let's say that Coca-Cola hires some psychologists. So the psychologist will clearly observe how human mind reacts to different kinds of colors, to different kinds of fonts, in fact, even, and to different kinds of sizes. And according to that, they might help in creating Coca-Cola's label so that it immediately attracts the viewer. Okay, it immediately hooks the viewer that yeah, this is something that I want to try. It immediately grabs the attention, because the human mind reacts differently to different kinds of substances, right? It views different colors in a different manner. It gives more attention to some specific colors and less attention to some other specific colors. Like red is more visible to us, or more easily visible to us in a crowd. The color yellow is more easily visible. So this is the kind of psychological methods that the psychologists apply to their companies' branding, to their companies' advertisements, in order to increase their sales. Okay, they also sometimes try to persuade other companies, or try to persuade in some company meetings, to form better bonds, to form more close relationships between other companies, between subsidiary companies, between other managements. It is important to know the needs, likes, dislikes, preferences, and habits of people who buy these products. So people need to know, they try to form a kind of image inside you that you really need this product, that you want this product. Like before Coca-Cola was made, everybody was living perfectly fine, right? But now after Coca-Cola, everybody feels like whenever there are guests at home, you must bring a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi, or a soft drink is necessary. Why? Because these psychologists have helped these companies build such advertisements, create such an atmosphere that people now feel bound to buy their products. People now feel that these products are really important in their life. They play a really important role in their lives. Consumer psychology also contributes to the field of advertising. Psychologists have been helping in designing advertisements which would attract the attention of consumers and effectively convey the messages so that they are motivated to buy the product. Just like I said, now comes our educational psychology. This field of psychology is primarily concerned with the development of effective approaches and techniques for imparting knowledge and skills which would make the people personally successful and happy and socially productive. So just like what I'm trying to teach you for the past a year, I think we've been making videos for a year or maybe more, but we very like there's no particular timing. I randomly post a video like anytime. So what this says is that we try to create techniques or different methods of approaches so that you can you can understand complex things, complex knowledge and complex skills can be easily imparted into you, that you can easily pick up, you can easily learn complex operations, complex knowledge and complex topics, of course, and you can become successful and you can become happy as well and socially productive, that you become contributive to the society, you contribute something to the society, you become a morally right good person. Okay, you become a morally good person, you feel happy yourself, right? You feel a kind of satisfaction with your life and you are successful as well. So these are the things that need to be done. My dog is disturbing me again now. Educational psychology investigates classroom dynamics, teaching styles, and learning. So they try to, they try to observe how students react to different kinds of topics, different kinds of subjects, and which subjects students are able to pick up easily, what kind of language are they able to understand easily, or like in which method are they able to easily pick up information, like in a visual method, in a just a spoken manner, or maybe in some brief notes manner, or do we need to individually expand all the topics, explain all the things in order to make them understand. This branch deals with the broader problems, increasing the efficiency of learning in school by applying psychological knowledge. The relationship between psychology and education is very intimate. Okay, so psychology and education are very well connected. They are very closely related. School psychology. Okay, now this is just a subfield of educational psychology. They detect and treat learning disabilities and help improve classroom learning. So they are mostly with for people who have learning disabilities, who are not easily able to learn things, who find it difficult to learn something. The job of school psychologists include diagnosing learning disabilities and trying to remedy them. Then comes our sports psychology. It is the study of the psychological basis, processes, and effects of sport. Okay, so what kind of effects does sport have on a person's psychology? How the psychology, the brain processes sports. Okay, the sports activities. To register oneself as a sports psychologist, one needs either a first degree in psychology and a higher degree in sports science, or a first degree in sports science and a higher degree in sports psychology. So either of them. Broadly, the work of a sports psychologist is conducting research in the psychological aspects of sports. Okay, so what are the psychological aspects of sports? What can be psychological aspects of sport? Like from my personal experience, I can tell you that one of the psychological aspects of a sport can be that it can reduce your mental performance. So I remember when I used to train for boxing, there was a time like when we used to get into friendly matches, okay, friendly bouts we call them, or sparring matches. So you would often get hit on your head. Okay, so sometimes I would receive so much hitting all over my head that it will start hurting, and I would feel like my head is so full. Okay, I wouldn't be able to concentrate on studies, I wouldn't be able to learn anything. So it my dad told me that if you keep on getting hit on your head, eventually you'll become very dumb, because your brain is getting damaged each time you get a punch on your head. So it obviously affects your mental performance. Some particular sports in fact as well, like boxing, martial arts, or there are some sports in fact like martial arts has some other subfields which can in fact increase your brain's performance, increase it multiple times. Okay, you must have heard that previously our some of our like previously our ancestors were great martial artists and they had so much knowledge. Okay, like in China those people were so big martial artists and they were well versed in all kinds of knowledges as well. imparting education among students, sport person about the recent findings research. Okay, so there are some particular ways in which a person might feel more motivated to work. I mean, if you're doing a particular sport, it might be that you do not feel motivated every day. Okay, you sometimes feel that I want to just skip it today, I don't like this part of the exercise, or I don't like that part of the exercise. I'm speaking all this from personal experience. So psychologists can help they can tell you ways that you can feel motivated, that you feel the fire inside you, that yeah, I will do this, I want to do this. Applying principles of sports psychology in intervening any psychological problems faced by athletes. So of course athletes are also human beings, so they also sometimes face psychological issues, like it could be with their family, with their friends, with the any finance related issue, or anything, like it could be any issue in this whole world. So their psychologists then help them cope, deal with these issues as well. Then comes your forensic psychology. It involves understanding criminal law in relevant jurisdictions in order to be able to interact appropriately with judges and legal professionals. So this comes, this is less related to psychology and more related to criminal procedures. So a person needs to have a thorough information of criminal law and the different kinds of punishments that are according to different crimes, and they need to understand legal language as well, so that they can appropriately interact with the judges and legal professionals that are lawyers and advocates. An important aspect of this is the ability to testify in court. Okay, so this is a special power of a forensic psychologist, that they can testify in court. Testify means give evidence as a witness. Okay, so they can, if a person applies for mental disorders, like let's say that a person killed someone, and that he applies that I had mental disorders and that's why I killed that person, and I wouldn't have done it under normal conditions. So a psychologist has this power to identify, to give witness that whether or not this person has mental disorder or not. If the psychologist says that no, this person does not have any mental disorder, that is, he provides evidence that no, we have done these tests and these tests, we have done this test and this test, and they all say that this person does not have any psychological disorder, so the person will get punished accordingly. But if the psychologists say otherwise, that yeah, this person has psychological disorders, he's speaking the truth, then the person will receive some treatment, not a punishment of course, but treatment. Reformulating psychological findings into the legal language of the courtroom. The number of jurisdictions in which a forensic psychologist qualifies as an expert increases with experience and reputations. Sorry, not reputations. I'm misspeaking these words because because of my treatment of my teeth, and I have to wear these stupid rubber bands that keep on stretching my teeth 24/7, and they pain really bad. And of course, if you have any questions related to braces, this complete procedure of braces or teeth alignment, then you can ask that as well. But let's say what the number of jurisdictions, right? We were on jurisdictions. It means the official power to make legal decisions and judgments. So the number of judgments, or the number of times a forensic psychologist can testify as testify is the word. The number of times a forensic psychologist can testify, that is provide evidence or become a witness to a crime, increases with his experience and reputation. So it's not like that in every case you can bring that particular forensic psychologist and then he is the same person who will perform tests. It's a kind of defined number, that he can only appear in this much cases in a year or in a month, but it increases with experience and reputation. Now forensic psychologists provide sentencing recommendations as well. Like the judge may ask that how much sentence do you think this person should be given. So let's say a person has some kind of slight mental disorders, but the psychologist say that he was conscious of his actions when he did this, or he was slightly conscious of his actions, or it is not very clear whether he was or he wasn't, but there's a very good chance that he was. So the judge might even ask the psychologist that how much sentence do you believe that we should provide for this kind of thing, or how much sentence for a treatment should be provided for a particular condition. Treatment recommendations can also be provided can also be recommended by a forensic psychologist, and any other information the judge requests, such as information regarding mitigating factors, assessment of future risk. Mitigating factor means like what could have been the potential cause for this crime, or what is the future risk that this person might develop this abnormal behavior once again, or he may or may not recover from from these conditions in the future. A whole range of topics like criminal profiling to psychopathic personality to eyewitness testimony to mental and emotional states of victims and witnesses. So these are all the things that come under a forensic psychologist. Now comes our criminal psychology. The aim of these psychologists is to uncover psychological factors and motivation behind a criminal behavior. Simple as that. They try to understand what the motive was, what was the reason behind a particular crime, what the person was thinking, and if such crimes can be avoided in the future. Okay, what can be the various ways in which people can be trained or people can be taught so that such crimes are avoided in future. Next, we have only three, these last three. Environmental psychology. The focus of the investigation of environmental psychology is the interrelationship between the physical environment and human behavior and experience. So, what is the relationship between human behavior and human experience and our physical environment? This is what environmental psychologists study. And once again, I would like to tell you that environment is not restricted to plants, trees or animals in your surrounding area. It includes absolutely everything from your bedsheet cover to your smartphone. Okay, everything that is around you or that you can interact with is a part of your environment. Now this doesn't have a particular radius that around how much area, but you can just have an idea about how much it should be. But your environment, that things that you interact with almost on a daily basis, that can be considered as part of your environment. So researchers in environmental psychology investigate a wide range of questions that involve psychological content, spatial behavior patterns, mental images, environmental stress, attitude change, what environmental stress the person is feeling, what kind of mental images he formed regarding a particular thing, what are the attitude changes, what kind of changes in attitude he face in a particular environment, and how that attitude changes in some other kind of environment, and why this happens. So environmental psychologists have worked in such topics as environmental perception, environmental cognition, environmental attitudes. Now I wouldn't go into depth and explain these topics as this is not very important, but if you want you can search each of these topics on the net. You'll easily find your answers. Military psychology. Military psychology can be defined as the application of psychological principles in a military setting. Okay, so applying those psychological principles in a military environment, that's simple. Okay, or you can say like everywhere around you there are military people and you apply your psychological principles on them. Okay, simple as that. One of the primary goals is to improve the betterment of army personnel and their family members. So one of the most obvious goals for this is so that they can improve the productivity of army people and their family members as well, because army life has a lot of stress, right? It's a very stressful job. It needs to be army people needs to deal with a lot of danger. Okay, they are at risk every time. Same goes with police personals as well. So psychologists help minimize their stress, minimize their strain, and keep them going on, keep them more productive, keep them happy, keep them balanced, keep their mood balanced. Okay, the major activities conducted by military psychologists include doing research, providing mental health services, just like I told you right now, teaching assessment, and selection of military officers. Now, selection of military officers are also another important task of military psychologists. Like you have to go through some military, some psychological tests before getting admitted into army, right? So these tests are formed by a military psychologist. Aviation psychology. Now, this is one of the recent and least known applied areas of psychology. The role of an aviation psychologist is to help authority in recruiting pilots and helping engineers to design pilot-friendly cockpit displays. So, one of the important tasks of aviation psychologists are to help recruit, sound-minded pilots, because the job of pilot is very important. He has the responsibility of hundreds of passengers. So if the pilot is insane, or the pilot is some crazy minded person, he might endanger the lives of hundreds of people. So they need to make sure that the pilot can handle stressful situations. The pilot can work perfectly under, under difficult circumstances. And they also help in engineers they also help engineers in designing cockpit displays, the area where the pilot sits and operates. Those areas, that display in a very pilot friendly manner, okay, because the pilot has to work on that. It's a very complex machinery, and the pilot needs to work on that for several hours straight, okay. So they need to be in such a manner so that the pilot doesn't feel too bored, the pilot doesn't feel stressed, okay, right? Because just like I said, it's a very complex piece of machinery. It involves so many buttons and so many different kinds of things. Aviation psychology encompasses research on the design of aircraft, particularly cockpit displays and controls, work on the selection and training of pilots and ground personnel. The same thing is repeated, the same as just we read. And this here concludes your chapter 10, your last chapter from general psychology. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask me, okay, feel free to write it down in the comments, and the link to the notes will of course be provided. Next we're going to start with our third year of English honors. Okay, we're going to start with third year of English honors. Until then, see you. Okay, where did my, yeah, here it is.